And welcome back, everyone, to What If? Well, what if? Well, what if, Omni-Man had a Pokemon team, I guess. The Pokemon Team Creation Series from Rainbow Prison. What is Omni-Man, Nolan Grayson's Pokemon team? Keep in mind, I always look at this, I take every attribute from their actual series, the character, powers, whatever. But I then just convert that into, in the world of Pokemon, if these guys existed, what would their team be? Omni-Man, we know, is a Viltrumite that was sent to Earth to basically prep it for conquering. But he became essentially the hero, and ultimately, through his son, went through an arc to basically become an actual good person. Now, okay, what exactly do I envision for his Pokemon team? Well, believe it or not, he was actually not easy to do. Well, you might think, well, why not? He's Viltrumite, alien, he's just a Superman clone. Well, that's kind of partly the point. He is an alien, but the amount of alien Pokemon we have, I couldn't just make it a full-on alien team. Ultra Beasts come from a different dimension. That doesn't work. I mean, what do we have for actual alien? You have Clefable, the Clefairy line. I think even Jigglypuff is considered an alien because of the Moonstone. In fact, theoretically, anything that evolves with a Moonstone might be alien in nature, but maybe. But if I take that out of the equation, what else do we have? I mean, you got Deoxys, you got the BEM line, you got Rayquaza lives in the atmosphere, not in space. We know Eternatus is alien. Like, in terms of Starmie, but in terms of actual alien Pokemon, it's very far and few between. Like, Pokemon that live in space, or at least the upper atmosphere or whatever, are very few. So I had to get a little creative with that aspect. Beyond that, though, he's one of the, as unfortunate as it is to say, he is one of the weaker clones of Superman. He doesn't even have, like, a lot of the base abilities that Superman does, like heat vision, frost breath, anything like that. It's mostly just physical strength. A Zenkai ability, sure, but otherwise, not much unique apart from the super physicality. But you know what? I did the best I could. So I think there's half this team. Like, if we're looking at this from the perspective of, he's still Nolan in the sense that he's got a mission to conquer the Poke world or whatever. He's just living among these people to, gain their trust, so forth and so on. If we're going about it from that perspective, I think there's a 50-50 split with this team. There's the half of the team that he shows the public, and then a half of the team that shows the Viltrumite side. So starting off, Conkeldurr. Why Conkeldurr? Well, it has one of the highest base attacks of any Pokemon period at 140. And that's really where I was going with this. I wanted a big super fighting type. But beyond that, I did actually, in the later parts of choosing this team, think, well, you know what? He did say he wants to destroy a meteor the size of Texas. Maybe these are chunks of the meteor that he carries with him. Or symbolically, anyway. Then there's another Mon he shows the public, which is the fact that he is an alien. I chose Minior for this. I actually like Minior for this, and I just got core for him. It doesn't really matter what the color is. I'd probably lean more towards a red one, to be honest, because of his red and white. But it's a fast Pokemon. He is also extremely fast, but it is a Pokemon that, because of its shields down ability, can take a bit of damage, and it comes from the upper atmosphere, and it can drop to Earth, similar to how Omni-Man came to Earth. So I don't mind that idea for Minior. None of the other space-based Pokemon really fit, in my opinion. Like, Eternatus, in power perspective, certainly fits, but not in terms of the grand scheme of things. And then the third Pokemon that the public gets to see is the hero side of it. Well, actually, no. The Minior people don't generally get to see. That's the alien. The other Pokemon they don't get to see is the soldier of him. That is... Oh, come on, you stupid thing. There we go. Is Phalanx. This is because, short and sweet of it, he is a soldier. That is what he is. And I think, he's following orders. So I think that's another Mon the public's not generally seeing. Now, a Mon they are seeing, though, like I said, is the hero side of it with Palafin. This one just makes sense. It is a superhero Pokemon. It is exceptionally powerful when it is transformed. It does just make logical sense, I think, for the public persona of Omni-Man. So absolutely that makes sense. And the last one is like among the powerhouse Mon he has on the team. the very lovable, friendly, but powerful Dragonite. This, again, makes sense to have on the team. It's a super powerful Pokemon, can fly across the world very fast, which is what Omni-Man does, but it has a lovable persona, which, well, maybe not Omni-Man isn't quite lovable, but he is a friendly persona that he puts on for the public. But then there's the last Mon on the team who's kind of the opposite side of that coin. It's the true rage, fury, viciousness of a Viltrumite. I went with Hydreigon. This is the opposite side of what he's ultimately trying to show. This is the true nature of Omni-Man that he's been hiding from the public, but it's not. We know it's not truly who he is in the long run. But still, in terms of what initially we saw from him. So yeah, that is the team I have for Omni-Man. It also makes sense because it is a ferociously powerful Pokemon. In terms of how strong this team is, it does have a ×2 weakness to flying with your two fighting types. It has a ×4 weakness to fairy. Only the Minior and the Palafin are safe from that. It's got a ×3 weakness to electricity, and got a water type and a flying type, and rock doesn't resist it. ×3 weakness to ice, which are 2 dragon and the flying type. ×3 weakness to psychic, which are 2 fighting types. ×2 weakness to dragon. And that is about it, luckily. So, I mean, you do have that. So it's not like the greatest amount of weaknesses in the world, but they're pretty notable weaknesses. But on the opposite side, you have a ×3 strength against rock, 2 fighting, and 1 water type. You have 2 strength against steel with 2 fighting types as well. You have a ×2 strength against dark, 2 fighting types, ×2 strength against normal, ×3 strength against ice with your rock and 2 fighting types, ×2 strength against bug with your 2 flying types, ×2 strength against fighting, ×2 strength against fire, ×2 strength against grass, and dragon. So even though you don't have a ×4 strength against anything per se, you definitely are. I think it balances out having a couple extra weaknesses. That being said, though, how well would this team manage in a playthrough? Could you become champion of any region? And the answer ultimately is yes, you could become the champion in a couple regions. The regions you could become champion in, I'm going to try doing this in a different way to kind of speed it, because I usually take the longest with this part. Kanto, yes, you could become champion in Kanto. Honestly, the only trainer that's going to give you any real struggle is probably Koga, because at that point, you're not going to have Dragonite, you'll have a Dragonair. Yes, you'll have Palafin, but you have 2 fighting types that aren't really going to be good against poison, and Minior is really just kind of neutral. So it'd be a little tougher to get through Koga, but it would not be impossible. And that's because you still should be able to get some sort of hits off whatever attacks you have with the fighting types. So there's that. Otherwise, even Lance, being a dragon specialist, you'll still have Zawilus and you'll still have Dragonite at that point. So I don't think you're going to struggle at all, really, in the grand scheme of things. Even though he does have flying types, so you still have Minior, you still have Palafin as well. So in fact, start with Finnison and then move out with Palafin. Even though Palafin's lower on this list, it would make sense to start with that if you could. And then honestly, blue really would actually be that difficult. Yeah, you'd want to swap out with Conkeldurr going up against that Pidgeot, either do Minior or honestly one of your pseudos. Honestly, probably do Zawilus because it is just overly powerful and should take out the Pidgeot, and his next move is to bring out Alakazam, and he's immune to Alakazam. And then you should be fine. Johto, you cannot become the champion of. Just because you're going to just have a Timber. That's all you're going to have, and it's a flying gym first. You're not going to be able to get past it, unfortunately. If you hypothetically did, could you beat Lance? That one's a tentative maybe. Because the levels are so low, you will not have Hydreigon at all. Similar to Kanto. Kanto's got higher levels, but not high enough to have Hydreigon. But, yeah, because of how low the levels are, you will not have Hydreigon. And that's going to be a big problem for you, because he's got 3 Dragonites to your 1 and a Zoelis. So, yeah, ultimately, I don't think I wouldn't think it's impossible. You still got some wiggle room here, especially if, you got Palafin with, like, a move that isn't just water. Anyway. So, then we go into Hoenn. Hoenn is a big maybe because there's a good couple roadblocks along the way for Hoenn. One is Winona. You will have a full team at that point, but they're not going to be above like mid 30s. So unfortunately, you'll have Dragonair, Dino, which is not going to have the stats to really do much. And you won't even, I think, have a Palafin at that point. I think even if you scale 2 levels up, which is the limit I allow, you'll still only have a Finizen if I remember my levels right on that gym. Or because I think evolves at level 38. So yeah, even if it's you wouldn't even have that. So that's and you have 2 freaking fighting types. Now you do still have Minior, and you do still have Dragonair, and Zoelis is still going to be able to maybe get a hit in. It would be tough, not impossible, but tough. Now, past that, though, you should be able to handle the rest of the gyms without too much difficulty, because at that point now you got Liza and Tate, who are in the high 30s, low 40s. At that point, you should be able to manage without too much difficulty. And then you got, obviously, Wallace or Juan, and that should be fine, too. Steven, I have never actually... I never actually think about doing Wallace when I talk about the champion, because he is also the other champion of that region. I always forget that. But long and short, this team could beat Wallace because you got 2 dragons that resist water anyway. And yeah, some of those water types know ice moves, but that's irrelevant. You'll be fine. In terms of the standard run though for Ruby Sapphire or Omega Ruby Omega Sapphire, honestly, you're gonna also struggle with Drake. Like always, you're gonna struggle with Drake. You will have a Dragonite at this point, but you will not have Hydreigon. You'll still have Zoelis. And because of that, Salamence, Flygons along. Now, the Flygons you'll actually be a little bit better against because they're not going to be able to throw Earthquake on you, at least your Dragonite or your Minior. But you're going to struggle against those guys. And I believe he's got a Kingdra in the more recent remakes. So Drake's always a tough one. Drake could have been a champion if Steel didn't resist Dragon. I think that's the reason, lore-wise, he loses to Steven, apart from lower level, is that because of Steel typing resisting a lot of his moves, he ultimately goes down. But frankly, if you actually look at a lot of the move lists he has Flamethrower, things along those lines. Yeah, it's not likely that he'd be able. I'm not likely. That's not a word I was looking at. It's possible he could beat Steven. As for Steven, again, that's a crapshoot. You got 2 great steel types against his fighting types, or fighting types against his steel types, but that's unfortunately it, because he starts out with a Skarmory, and you actually don't have any good answer for that Skarmory. You don't have electric moves to deal with the flying type nature of that. You don't have fire moves at all, at least not naturally learned. And your fighting moves are going to resist it by flying. It's going to be immune to ground. So yeah, you're in a little bit of a pickle against the Skarmory. It's going to set up like spikes, toxic. It's got Skarmory is a problem. The Aggron, that'd go down easy, no problem. The Claydol would be a little problematic. Now, you throw Hydreigon in there, the Psychic type doesn't matter. Great, wonderful. You got Armaldo. It's pretty much neutral, really. You maybe swap into Palafin, but you gotta throw Finizen in there first, which is the problem. It's not impossible to beat Steven, but it's definitely a lot of back and forth. Definitely. Okay, what about Cynthia? Well, I'm gonna tell you right now, you're kind of, I think, done at Gardenia, really. Just due to the fact that Minior doesn't actually have a lot of solid flying moves, if I remember correctly, early on. And she has a Roserade, a Turtwig, and a Cherubi. And your Timber, which it would still be a Timber, I think Timber at this point, yeah, because it evolves at level 24, is not going to be enough to get through that. In fact, if anything, it's going to run into a roadblock with the Gardevoir. Beyond that, I mean, she's got, and so it's going to go down pretty quick, and I don't even see Minior lasting all that long. So, unfortunately, I think he actually stopped at Gardenia, even with the resistance to grass that he got. So, beyond that, could you hypothetically have beaten Cynthia? And the answer actually is a maybe, but it's a tentative maybe, because Spiritomb is going to already be a problem. You have no fairies on this team. Yeah, I believe you can learn things like Sucker Punch with Conkeldurr, if I remember correctly, but Apart from that, you'll need like Hydreigon, which I do believe level-wise you would have Hydreigon at this point. It'd be very close, but you should have Hydreigon at this point. And luckily, with Hydreigon, you can sweep a lot of the team. But the Garchomp is still a problem. It's a maybe. It definitely is a strong maybe. You could beat her. But, I don't think you're getting past Gardenia, to be honest. Hell, there's a legit chance you might not even get past Roar because he still got you 3-1 against his team. Yes, you got the fighting type in your favor, but that Craniados, if that hits you even once, I don't think Timber's got the beefiness to survive. Unova, you stop at Elisa. That's just it. You stop at Gym 4 because at Gym 4, you have Conkeldurr, admittedly. You got Minior, you've got Phalanx, and you got Finizen, not Palafin. She is an electric type gym leader, so Finizen right off the table, and I gotta take Minior off the table too. And then she has those goddamn Emolgas with Aerial Ace that outspeed both these guys. She's got 2 of them too. You're not getting past her. I'm sorry. And in terms of which champion could you get past? Could you get past Iris? Surprisingly, it's a maybe. This is due to the fact that Hydreigon would still be weak to fighting, which means Conkeldurr could probably get a hit in and maybe even take it down before going down itself. Phalanx and Minior would still be useful for stuff like Palafin would be useful against the Aggron and even the Archeops. And then you still have Dragonite and the Laprats too. And the Hydreigon. So yes, Iris is a maybe. Hypothetically, if you went against Alder, you're already in a bad position against Alder. Because this team has 2 Mon that are okay against Bug if they actually have flying type abilities on them. Which I believe Dragonite can learn Hurricane. But Conkeldurr is no good against that Aselgor. Bug and fighting resist each other. So and Aselgor is going to have speed, so it's going to keep getting more hits in. Then you're going to have to deal with probably his Buffalont or his I can't remember what order he normally does it in. Let's just say Buffalont comes out next. You would throw Phalanx out, but Buffalont is going to hit harder than Phalanx. It just has higher stats. It's got bigger attack boosts, even with the type advantage. So that's going to be tough. I think the Buffalont might actually get the win on the Phalanx. So then you're going to want to throw out probably Minior or Palafin. You probably throw out Finizen, swap it out for Minior. Minior can take a hit, shields down, then outspeeds Buffalont, takes it down. Then he's going to throw out probably Vanillux, which is then going to take it down with an ice move. So then you're going to have to throw out Palafin. Palafin can take that guy down. Then you're in trouble because he's going to throw out either Druddigon or he's going to throw out Excavalier, which you have no answer for at this point. That's not true. Druddigon, you have the dragon types, you can do that, but Palafin isn't going to really have an answer for either because dragon resists water. So Druddigon would go down, and then Volcarona. If it gets Quiver Dance off, you're in trouble. So yeah. Then in Kalos, no, you don't even get past Vivian or Viola. Galar, honestly, if you can get past Opal, you could actually beat Leon with this team pretty easily because Hydreigon can easily just take down the entire team. And then in Paldea, you would struggle heavily with Iono, but you would still win. So, no, sorry, you wouldn't get past Kate. I apologize. You would not get past Kate. So actually, you could not become champion there, but you could beat Gita. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. See you next time.